Happy New Year! Happy New Year
like
for our...
Clink.
Yeah, if I don't smash the camera and you don't smash the camera screen with the bottle, with our mugs.
Yeah. The thing is it slightly looks like a hammer when you hold on it.
Well, that's why I went for these larger mugs. So it makes sense, a white hammerhead.
They're the size of our heads, aren't they? Massive.
Yeah, that's from my big mug.
Perspective joke.
Yeah, from the Big Mug Company. So it is January, and we are starting a fresh. We are episode 16, so we've done this for like 15 weeks. This is now our 16th week. I realized that some of them, the 15th week didn't publish on some platforms, so maybe people have two to listen to or to catch up over the Christmas holidays and the New Year holiday. But I wanted to come in hot with basically what we should talk about in this episode, which is, are you
Shame we can't have music, because I'm like, we're coming in hot.
Yeah,
isn't that a song?
We should put a track in the back. Yeah, it is, because I also sing that track as well. Settling, and I've forgotten the name of what I wanted to... Mediocrity. So are you basically settling with some mediocre, just so-so, because it's easier, rather than going for what's a little bit harder, but more in line with what you feel that you're made to do, or made to create, or made to do. And I think a lot of the times we will settle with mediocrity because it's easier, there's less fear, there's less uncertainty, there's less worries, fears, anxieties, there's less questions, there's less dependencies, there's less opinions. So yeah, those are all the reasons why we end up settling. And I don't mean settling necessarily always in the sense of going from employment to self-employment. I mean settling working for that employer. It might be that you would prefer to do another industry and jump ship, or working for another company, or building a side project. So I recognize January is that time where everybody's going to be talking about goals and what are you planning on doing this year? And sometimes that can be too intense. And what I would be like, if you are listening to this today, I want today to be somewhat irritating, because I want you to reflect on, well, it's easy for you to say, this is why it's hard for me. And if those kind of like feelings come up, like that's a good thing, because you can then take them one by one and challenge them. So like, yeah, it's easy for you to say, quit your job and go and, go self-employed, but you don't have kids. You don't know how hard it is. So I recognize everybody will have very distinct objections to what I hope that we can stir up. But ultimately the goal here is just I was telling Tom, when I wanted to start the new year with a fresh episode, I wanted basically to create such an episode that somebody listening would comment, be like, easy for you to say, like, you don't understand my situation. And I think it's not necessarily about arguing or kind of going backwards and forwards with somebody that has a rebuttal to like why they should quit their job and go and work for somebody else.
To understand your situation? Like, is it like you don't understand my situation, so show me compassion? Or is it, you don't know my situation, so I don't need to do anything or listen to anything? Do you get me?
Of course, there's always going to be empathy, because everybody's situation is unique. Even just in me saying, whether or not you have kids, or whether or not you're caring for a sick parent, or, everybody will have very specific reasons. But I think I would say, like, let's cut the bullshit, right? To some degree. And I want to irritate that into people, just so you're challenging yourself on whether or not this is an excuse or a real reason why it can't happen in route A, but it doesn't mean that route B can't happen. So it's kind of like,
so it's more what I can take away rather than they don't know.
Yeah. I want this irritation. So if you're listening to us or watching us, I want you to feel a little bit irritated, to be like, and challenge yourself and question yourself and question your rebuttals. So if I'm like, if you are employed right now and you're not happy, why have you not left? Like, why have you not quit? And if you instantly reactionary is like, well, I can't quit because I've got to pay the mortgage. Like, who else is going to pay the mortgage? Or I can't quit because, I've got kids to look at. I completely understand. So it's like, I understand. So I have empathy for those rebuttals, but like challenge those rebuttals, because ultimately I think there's a way that you can do both. As in, you can still look after your kids, you can still pay the mortgage, you can still look after that sick parent, and also be happy in the job that you do, or in the role that you do, or whatever side hustle you've started and stuff. And again, I'm very aware that side hustles aren't for everybody. So it's a case of like, are you happy with what you're doing right now? And really like challenge yourself. Because if you are not, then you need to quit. You need to change. You need to start doing something. You need to stop doing something to get out of that. And I recognize instinctively there'll be how dare you guys? You guys are saying it because you're chill. Like, you're like happy on a Tuesday afternoon saying like, I should change my job. Like, easy for you to say. Well, I understand that, but it's like, so what? Like, we don't benefit from saying anything like this, right? We don't benefit from telling somebody to quit their job. The only benefit is the person, like you guys listening. You are going to benefit from a change, because I hope that whatever change of circumstance or situation that does happen, that does get planned in over whatever time period it needs to be, you will be happier than staying exactly where you are, because you don't want to rock the boat. It's too hard. Like, even age, somebody might feel like they're too old, right? And I think challenge yourself to be like, is that a defensive thing to basically get out of the hard work? Or is it a reality thing, and actually the hard work just needs to be like strategically positioned so you can succeed, and it not be something that holds you back from you yourself feeling joy? So yeah, I would say right now, are you settling with unhappiness in whatever you are in? Okay. Indeed, it's a long intro. There you go. You can chime in now.
I was going to say, nothing to do with your topic, is the fact that we finally sorted out.
You can't hijack this. So you've got to keep to the topic. Otherwise, people will not feel frustrated enough to comment.
Technically, it is on the topic of frustration and stuff, but it's like the audio and video quality on my side has been really sucky. But we've upgraded my mic, if you can see this. And also, we have finally fixed the linking up my iPhone to my MacBook. First world problems. It was a what do you call it? Chrome wasn't liking it, so I've had to go with Brave. And it's one of those things. It's like, it's always been a frustration, but instead of not doing anything, it's just doing research. So doing research to be like, I know my iPhone is good enough to do this. Like, since the update, it's a XS, so 10S. I know my MacBook's good enough. So what is the issue? And I think it is having that determination that even though you might butt heads a couple of times, like you might want to leave, but then you get some good feedback that makes you feel good, so then you don't want to leave. It's that having that, I guess, conviction that you want to do something in a certain way, and then going out and doing it, and maybe doing it with a group of people. Like, if you've got a partner or family or whatever, you need people's buy-in. But equally, it's sort of discerning when you know something needs to happen. So I know I wanted the system to work, save buying another camera or faffing around, because just small things like, I know it improves the video quality, which is better. So it looks like high production when really it's just I'm using my iPhone. But yeah, if that makes sense.
I will allow that comment as you tied it in nicely.
So also, in an interesting comment to you, this is live production right here, is I've turned off the screen of my MacBook, so I don't actually know what your facial features look like, to force me to look at the camera as if I'm doing eye contact to everyone.
Oh, right.
Because every time that you move, I actually look down. So from a distraction point of view, I've turned it off. But equally, it means if you're quiet, I don't know if you're there. So it sounds like I'm just talking to myself, which is interesting.
I think if there's any dead air, fill it.
Dead air.
I've positioned my camera to kind of be eye line and then you're just slightly off to the right, because I want to get better at doing pieces to camera, because again, I want individuals that are listening to like see a little bit more intentionality with us staring at them. Be like, question yourself and challenge yourself to figure out, January has come round, are you happy, yes or no? And if you're not happy, what things can you address to make changes? I agree with the whole like rocking the boat. In rocking the boat, they might kind of say, oh, but we really, really appreciate you. And then there's like one thing that basically, if you are unhappy, one thing that means you're not going to leave is the fear of other people's opinions, right? Or not even the fear, but the respect of other people's opinions. And therefore, if somebody's like, oh, but you're really valuable and all this stuff, I think it's the responsibility that you feel for other people's businesses or other people's careers.
Are you
or
wanting
whatever.
this podcast to be tools to help people get frustrated and assess life? Or is it more of a journeying with the group that are watching of, this is the thing that's frustrating me, and I'm going to walk through what I'm going to do and keep tabs on what I'm doing?
All of the above, right? So if you're frustrated with where you're at and you want to get out, you want to change your situation, you want to just feel happier about your situation, then speak to us. Like, we're happy to have a private chat, right? And then the second thing is like, I want to find people that have the energy and want to change and need 5% to get over the line. Those people that want 5% encouragement just to get over the line, because you're nearly there. You know you dislike the situation that you're in, right? You know you hate that boss. You know that you hate working in that particular way or with those particular people or with those clients. And you're like 5% away from, like, you might have like looked for some new jobs, but you didn't go for it. Like, you're 5% away from like actually getting over the line into a much, much better situation. Now, of course, the next situation might not always instantly be better because there's still a bunch of uncertainty and stuff. But I guess it's like holding tight that on the long form, it's going to work out and it is going to be better. So not only when you're 5% away from doing it, but when you do it and you feel like literally you're trying to walk on water, but you start to sink, what happens there? The quickest thing is to get back on the boat. And that's also the bit of support that I think that we can provide in encouraging you not necessarily to get back on the boat, but to wait it out, but in a way that's, mindful of the pressures, right? It doesn't mean, you don't have any income for 3 months. And I think it's a case of, let's talk about it and basically be your best friend. So you have an ability to bounce stuff off. And what we'll do is just feed you with some insights and some interesting perspectives to help you on this journey. If you're that person that needs 5% encouragement to leave that job you're in or go and get another job or start that side hustle, we're your 5%, because all you need is 5% to get over the line. So we're it for you.
Yeah. I don't really know what to add, because you're doing very clever answering your own question and leave me in the lurch. But I think for me, it's like how I envisage stuff is like, imagine a garden. It could be overgrown. It could be perfect. And it's more the fact that, do you see the garden that's in front of you of what you actually want it to be? Because even if it's a perfect garden, let's say it's got a pool and a jacuzzi, but you hate water, then it's not a perfect garden for you. So it's creating that vision and fleshing it out of, let's say it is a 50-year plan to get to that perfect point or whatever, or that point that you think is better than now. But what is that? Okay, what is that one step for today? It's that building Rome doesn't happen in a day vibes. It's like slow and steady.
So two
and then obviously you get motivation from that. So then if you can speed things up, because then you get energy, because your happiness is increasing, then cool. Like then do 2 tasks, 3 tasks, 4 tasks, and then let it spitball into something greater, rather than going, I need to do 20 tasks and I do 1 and then I feel bad. I need to do 21 tasks the next day because I didn't do the one yesterday, and then you feel bad. It's like, no, what is like one thing? And if it is, okay, I don't know what the vision of a garden should look like, but it's overgrown. So let me just do the basics of going back to basic. Let's just cut it all back so I know what I'm working with, and I'll look at the tools that I've got to then see what I want to build it into. Because I think sometimes just cutting back either time, energy, effort, finances, and then you can see what is actually left over to then be like, oh, I didn't know that. Actually, I've got 400 quid because I've cancelled loads of subscriptions that I didn't know about, and I've got a rebate or whatever. That 400 quid, actually, I want to buy or put a deposit towards a laptop to then start a business or whatever. It's sometimes you have to do that pruning of going, okay, do I actually want the lifestyle that I want?
I would say to add to these things. So basically, you need to ask yourself, have you been rationalizing mediocrity? Have you been rationalizing mediocrity for your own situation or your own life? It reminds me
What's
of the
mediocrity again?
Like just so
For those people
like,
that don't understand,
it will do. Like it's good enough. It's good enough. Like there's nothing unique.
Okay.
Like you've got the house, you've got the dog, you've got the car, you've got the husband / wife / partner. You know, like so. Like
it's like coasting.
Yeah, it's coasting or not really. You know, just like basically
Living
being
life.
a doorstop when you're the hammer, right? It's kind of like, really, you should be out here trying to find the place for you as the hammer. And I would say, like, what I like about the fact you were saying visualize, of course, sometimes it's a case of visualizing what could be rather than what you're losing. And it's a case of empowering yourself by visualizing the opportunity that is ahead of you to encourage you to get out of the situation rather than to fear what you're leaving behind. And then it reminds me of the book of the parable in the Bible. Parable is another word for story. Story in the Bible where guy gives a bunch of investments to his 5 friends. He gives 10, let's put it in money terms, gives 10K to one guy, 5K to another person, 1K to another person. And basically the person with 10K invests it. The boss or whatever goes for a holiday, comes back off the holiday and wants to ask how these investments have been. So the guy with 10K or the person with 10K says, hey, I doubled your investment. I now got 20K. And the boss is like, well done. Nice one. I'm really pleased. Person with 5K say, well, I've managed to add an extra 2K. So now it's 7K. And it's like, awesome. Well done. Pleased with you. And then the person with 1K basically decided to just bury it. And the boss is super annoyed at the guy that buried it or the person that buried it, because that person could have literally put it in a savings account and got 1% on it, which would have been better than burying it. And now the thing that jumps out to me is it doesn't matter how much you multiply, right? The reaction of the boss is still the same. So whether or not you add 2K, 20K, 50K, doesn't matter what you do, but it's what you have, right? What you have, if you were able to multiply it, doesn't matter how many times you multiply it, but it's the fact you have multiplied it. And the biggest jump out, let me just finish this. The biggest jump out, it's because you can't see me, right? The biggest jump out is
exactly
the annoyance at somebody that has something. Again, it doesn't matter how much or how little, but it's the fact that they've not multiplied whatever they do have. So I would be like, don't be in a situation where somebody, aka your creator, could be like, hey, I gave you all these talents. I gave you the 1 talent. I gave you the 5 talents. And you didn't do anything with it. Like, don't be that person. So if you've got a particular talent, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to multiply it in a monetary sense, right? Because I just used monetary just to visualize the story. It doesn't mean that you have to create 5K or 10K necessarily. It's just like grow in that skill set, right? Develop that skill set, like go to the gym and have slightly bigger muscles for that one skill, right? If it's drawing or whatever you've got, like just draw some more stuff.
In the gym?
Yeah, just draw in the gym. Then you can figure out what to do. The most important thing is like, have you or have you not buried one or many of your talents and skills? And of course, you might not know what your talents and skills are. The easiest way to do that is ask people closest to you. Ask them to list 2 or 3 things that they think you're good at. And basically, if they say, if there's some pattern in there, great. If there's not a pattern in there, do what you enjoy and try new things to figure out what your skills are. Like do the work internally to figure out that thing. Right. Over to you.
I've forgotten it.
Back to the studio. I think we should just chime in over each other. Let's fight a bit more.
I did, and you said let me finish, and then that took a bit longer than I anticipated.
It's because I wanted to finish the visualization. Yeah,
you took too long for my small brain of attention.
We're feisty in
TikTok
this
brain.
We're feisty in this one, I think. So. So
what was
don't
it?
settle. And we're talking about talents, multiplying talents. We're also talking about visualizing.
I remember.
Good. There you go. Go. Steamroll.
I find it fascinating I think coming from a working class background is you always class finances from the amount rather than percentage. And what I mean by that is, let's say I earn 20k and my house takes out of me for a year 10k. But then let's say someone earns 40k and the house takes away 20k. Those are still the same amounts. But the person that's on the lower wage will look to the other person and be like, you're doubling the amount on your housing. That's crazy. But also they're doubling the amount of their profit. But you don't always take that into consideration being off a percentage. That's like, actually, those two, on a percentage point of view, are exactly the same situation. But the poorer person, I've been this in many cases, is you always look up and being like, oh, if I was in that situation, I'll go cheaper housing to then even get more money. But actually, it's sort of, you're not letting yourself necessarily enjoy the money that you have. That if it was based on percentages, because I've heard people say, what is it, live off 50%, spend like enjoyment 30%, save 20% or whatever.
Yep.
So really, you should be satisfied with that. But if you're not keeping to that because you're trying to scrimp on every item, I'm a pro at this, is you then maybe invest 20% and then create a lifestyle that fills up, what's the rest of 80%? And then you don't have like holidays that actually should be the 30% or whatever. But yeah, it's just a fascinating thing of, if you changed all your finances, or do budgeting for starters if you haven't, to find out where is your boat leaking, as I call it, where you're losing out on money that you don't realize, but then transition it into a chart of percentages, because at the end of the day, you might be trying to save on like, let's say £1 a month on something, when really you should call up your phone contract people because they're charging you £5 more a month. And sometimes you focus on the £1 for ages and you get stuck there, when really it's like, no, what is the biggest percentage thing? And then focus on the biggest percentage first, knock that down the most, and then work your way lower down the list, because then you'll get more of a saving rather than removing £1 thing. Look at something that's £20 that you could get down to £15, then you're like, sweet. If that makes sense. I sort of feel like my brain is scattered while saying those.
No, this is fine. It makes sense, because what I was going to add is, so another two things. One, the reason why I'm saying this is because this is documenting basically my self-narrative. So every time I record a podcast with Tom, I watch it back, because I want to basically feed off what I'm saying back to myself as well, so I can then pick up stuff. So in me sharing, like, have you settled? It's also a question to myself, have I settled? And I'm always trying to make sure that I'm not settling. So it's something that I'm constantly trying to make sure. And it doesn't mean that I'm then anxious about stuff. It means I'm finding the best iteration to give me the most return on energy, the most return on anything that I put into it. And then going off Tom's point around the practical help, one thing I want to do is start a newsletter, or not want to, we're going to, and we're going to call it The Bottom Line. Now, emails are pretty good for being lengthy and stuff, and I don't want it to be lengthy. I just want it to be two things. And this is where Tom and I kind of split in some of our speciality when it comes to just like life. It's going to be two things. Number one is going to be how to grow your income. So that'll be business ideas. It'll be employment ideas. For
all the growers out there.
Side hustles for all the growers out there. And then the second point, in no particular order, it's just like 2 points. And then the second point will be how to cut expenses or save money. So, for example,
for all the shrivelers,
yeah, all the shrinkers. So, what we're wanting to do is basically give you 2 points a week. And I'm not saying that all points will be relevant all the time, but it's a case of getting yourself into the right mindset. Now, when it comes to these, going back to the frustrations of, easy for you to say, well, a lot of the time it's a mindset trick, right? So let's say Tom and I, how did we not settle with mediocrity, and how do we continue not to settle with, so-so? It's by challenging our mindset and our beliefs. Like we did an episode way back about challenging belief, and it's about that self-reflection, and also about brainwashing yourself with positive stuff, surrounding yourself with positive people and positive influences. So you can believe, even though I do have kids, I can still do it, you know, and it's not about grind and hustle. I'm not saying that this is hustle culture and you need to do hustle stuff. Like I've experienced and seen when hustle culture goes wrong, because hustle culture is fake. Like not necessarily working hard is the right thing. It's about working intelligently, right? Working smart. And I would say, because we believe in God and believe in his intervention into how we work, I think there's an easier route. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's without the work, because you have to believe in it and kind of like go with that as well. But I definitely think that this shouldn't necessarily be like, how can you work harder or more? There are aspects of that, but I've started to be like, how could you do less, but do less, as in like, then you're focused in on the one thing that gives you that sense of joy or give you that sense of excitement. And that's the thing that tips the needle over.
I was thinking of a journal that was useful that I've not yet finished. And I think it's called the Mind Journal. And it's mainly a journal for, it's focused towards guys, but literally one of the first pages, it has literally like a spider chart, I think it's called, basically like a circle with loads of lines around it. And it's, you pick each topic around it. So it might be family, friends, finances, health, diet, hobbies, or whatever. And it's a 0 to 10 of basically, are you happy with where you're at? And it is really interesting because it just refines. Instead of going, are you happy in life? Yes or no? You might go, no, because like, I don't know why, but no. But then when you like cut them all out, it might be like, actually, I'm really happy in life in everywhere bar finances.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's drill down. Is it my job, or is it just the finances what come in and a pay rise might be good enough? So it is quite good at going, maybe it is segmenting out every part of your life to be like down to either different individual people, different tasks around the house or car or general life admin and stuff, different sort of topic areas. So it might be like finances or admin or planning, because you still need planning and admin skills for going on holiday. But I know it's not my strength. So then sometimes I lose out on having a holiday because I see the barriers in place. So then when you do segment it out and go, okay, it's really difficult, or I don't like admin, then you've got a choice to still do it because it's worth the reward, let's say a holiday, or it's not worth it because it's a job that you don't like. So you go, okay, let's look elsewhere. So it helps refine to understand again what's going on in your heart or head. Because sometimes by having a feeling that you're like, I'm unhappy right now, it's the classic thing is the people close to you might be like, are you unhappy with me? And it's like, no, it's something else, but I can't quite pinpoint it. So sometimes it might stress people out if you verbalize it out loud, when actually it might be just a reoccurring week in, week out thing that, let's say, someone's being nasty with you in your hobby, and you don't, because you're trying to brush it off your shoulders, maybe you're not taking it in, but then it's affecting your enjoyment with your hobby. And it's making you think about, should you leave that hobby? Should you move on? Should you try something else? So then it drips into every element of your life rather than just enjoying the hobby for what it's worth.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are other thoughts.
Yeah. And none of this is ever easy. It all requires a lot of self-improvement, that mindset work, which is really challenging. But I think ultimately you've just got to look back at before you even started this, like the happiness levels of that. Or it might be that you are happy, but there's something that you can eke out, as in like, one, make sure that that's real happiness. And it's not just, well, I've just thankful about the situation because at least I'm not, on the streets or homeless or wherever. So it's like true happiness and hopefulness. And also reflecting on how you can improve that even further still by just feeling more fulfilled. And I guess we're using the word happiness, but really it's like, do you feel fulfilled in whatever you're spending your time on, people you're spending your time with, in whatever, in this 360 perspective?
And I would add to that is, if you've got that secret answer of fulfillment or happiness, share it. because there's a lot of people that do struggle of not knowing, either in the small areas, like just their hobby or location of where they live, if they're happy with that, or bigger areas like, say, their work or their family, that you can offload some insight or knowledge on a voluntary basis. Because at the end of the day, if your friends get blessed, it blesses you. Like, you enjoy seeing them having a fulfilled life that then might change their perspective and change their lifestyle.
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe at a future stage, it'd be cool to create some sort of a group. I will say Facebook group, but I don't necessarily mean specifically a Facebook group, but some sort of Facebook group for, listeners, so they can basically connect with one another. Because I hope that they're basically all journeying at different points and different degrees into greater sense of purpose and fulfillment. And that's whether or not you're not sure because you've just come out of school and you are kind of figuring stuff out, or you're about to go to university, or whether you have been working in that job for 20 years and you want to go into a second leg of life, like a half time, and this is your second half, and figuring that stuff out. So there'll be always somebody at a certain point. So you can always look back 1 or 2 steps to kind of help those individuals get those 1 or 2 steps further to where you are, and vice versa, to help things. Because ultimately this should be a community of people that do help each other, whether or not you have the answers or don't have the answers.
Comment suggestions.
We're here to help. Yeah. So not only I hope that I've got people to comment because they're, how dare you say, am I settling with, mediocrity because I've got this situation, but I also hope that you feel encouraged to comment because you have found your niche, as they would say in America, or your niche, and you have found the thing that works for you. And ultimately, it's a work in progress. We don't have the answers. We're just trying to figure out the answers, and the bits that we do have answers for, we'll share it in hope that it helps somebody that's slightly further back. It doesn't mean anything because, again, people overtake at different times as well. It's not necessarily in competition. It's all trying to innovate and inspire each other into a different way. But before I forget, last week we mentioned about
like and subscribe.
Liking and subscribing, which we really appreciate if you're able to do that. And what I would say, if this is a second video, so if this is your first time listening to this, it's fine. You can have this freebie. But if you listen to a second episode of any of our stuff, then it's like, let's do it. Let's subscribe, let's like the podcast, because we both really appreciate it. And then I was going to say Jingle January. So we've not created a Jingle January form yet, but we will create a Jingle January form so you can submit your jingles to be placed on Don't Be a Doorstop podcast. And we're going to place it on February. So your entries will have to come in January, and we'll select it. And basically the winner will be selected at the end of January, and then we'll start using it in February. So like we said in the last episode, and maybe only half of our audience saw it because it was only up a couple hours ago for some platforms. But like we said before, if you include door slamming and hammer noises or hammers, then that's a bonus as well.
Sounds
Anything
good.
to add?
No, I was going to say we should probably think of some question for someone to go away with, just in case, let's say they're listening to this in the car and forgotten everything that we said. What is one thing they could take away? My mind went blank at the same time. What is one place you can prune back in life to create space for you to build whatever's in your heart or on your mind?
So that's one area or one thing you can stop doing or cut back or decrease
to create space and energy.
To create space.
To create
an energy for a new thing. Yeah. Or to build on top of an existing thing.
And another thought, just because this is how my brain works.
And my final thought.
If you find games easy to do, so strategy games or like games like Sims or COD or anything, you're constantly using your brain to strategize how to improve, working from like a small house to a big house if it's Sims, or like a rubbish gun to a good gun, and fleshing that out. Bring that mentality to your life. Pretend that your gamer as you've picked yourself, and then you need to strategize of how to build a bigger house, or obviously not how to get better guns unless you're in America. That might be a thing, but it's like, how would you improve those different stats of you? So if you do enjoy games, use that to gamify your life.
gamify your life. And on that point, keep hammering those nails. Bye for now.